Hello, I'm Yulia, the voice of the podcast Love to Heal, a journey of self-discovery, healing, and spiritual growth. Welcome back to episode number 2, Overcoming the Ego. In today's episode, I will share with you the knowledge I have acquired about the negative effects the ego can have on our life and our well-being, and the steps to overcoming it. But first, let's talk about the ego. What is it? The ego carries the idea of who you are. It's identified with the mind and has a socially conditioned filter, which dictates how you see the world and yourself in it. It is due to the ego that we feel fear, superiority, resentment, and a myriad of other feelings, most of which are detrimental to our spiritual evolution and our well-being. While on this spiritual journey, I've learned to respect and make use of various sacred texts from different belief systems and religions because they address many of the existential questions and can guide us in spiritual evolution. The Bible states that the basis of most human sins is pride. When a person strays from the Creator in heart and soul, he begins to sin. Translated from ancient Greek, sin means failure. That is, sin is a wrong direction or orientation, a loss of aspiration towards God, and instead the worship of secondary values. As I mentioned in the first episode, the correct system of priorities would be to strive towards love, the primary, the infinite, and then towards the earthly, secondary values, such as career, relationships, etc. As Sergei Lazarev writes in his book, Diagnostics of Karma, pride comes in many forms. We are used to thinking that the main sign of pride is a sense of superiority. But self-abasement is also a type of pride, as is the inability to think dialectically. In order to overcome pride, a person should become a monotheist, that is, learn to unite opposites, and this is only possible when there's a lot of love in the soul. For a proud person, life breaks down into black and white, into good and evil. He lives in extremes, periodically moving from one to another. Such a person sees enemies and the imperfections of the world everywhere. He is internally aggressive towards the world, constantly trying to suppress and subjugate it. This internal wrong attitude towards the world is a consequence of the priority of one's own personality and one's own life. Many religious people observe all the commandments and laws on an external level, believing in their correct behavior, but in fact, many stray from the path of achieving unity with the Creator, the universe, due to the lack of love in the soul. Pride begins with the loss of love, with the disappearance of the need for God or a higher power. Thousands of books have been written about how to overcome sins. Most of them recommend detachment from this world, asceticism, severe self-discipline, and avoidance of all forms of indulgence. This method may indeed help a person's soul become lighter, but to what end? A person is not an angel. He must live and contribute to the continuation of life. If everyone were to follow this path, let's say go into the mountains and sit around meditating in solitude, humanity would disappear from the face of earth. So the question arises, can an ordinary person overcome pride? The answer is also found in the Bible, in which the laws of the universe are encrypted. We must overcome 3 stages of sins. The first is crime. In order to not commit crimes, we must learn to restrain our animal desires. Sound familiar? Do not kill, do not steal, do not commit adultery. Wrong behavior stems from feelings. Crime occurs first at the level of feelings. Behavior follows. Murder, for instance, can be a consequence of envy, self-interest, greed, the priority of the material over the spiritual. This is why paying attention to our feelings and thoughts is essential in improving our character and ultimately our well-being. The second sin is the worship of instincts of life. Instincts are the basics of life and are necessary for a person to survive. But when life becomes an end in itself, the highest good and happiness, then a person forgets about love, God, and degradation begins. This sin is portrayed by the biblical story of Adam and Eve, and to overcome it, we must raise our moral level and practice behaving correctly on the level of feelings. We need to learn to live by the soul and not by the consciousness, since love resides specifically in the soul. Love should rise above justice and rightness, not to mention wealth and well-being. We need to change our character by becoming more merciful, sincere, be able to sacrifice and restrain our desires. The less love is in the soul, the more the body fears destruction, and the stricter the rules of behavior that prevent destruction become. That is, the concepts of morality and justice increase sharply. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The more scrupulously you follow all the rules, the higher the feeling of your own rightness and justice. This means more condemnation and aggression towards those who are wrong, and less love in the soul. When there's no love, you demand the correct line of behavior from the other. You despise and hate when he does not want to oblige. In other words, we don't need to prove correctness every time, especially that a truth for one may not be true for another, since it's all a matter of perspective. And even if we truly do believe we're right, sometimes it's better to let go. Move on. Save yourself the stress of the fight. In particular, when we're faced with small-scale setbacks and unfortunate events, be thankful for them. Be thankful that they're not life-threatening and face them with love. Let's say you got a parking ticket. Instead of going to court and trying to prove you're right, let it go and be happy you have your health and your family is okay. Always look for the positive. The third sin addresses a person's own importance becoming more important than love, than our Creator. This happens when a person believes only in his mind, his abilities, and control of the world. This person doesn't accept the process of life or God's will. Instead, he lives by his inner confidence and selfish desires. This is referred to in the Bible as diabolism. In order to choose the right path, one of development, we must understand that God or love is the source of life and that we are part of the Supreme. We are one. The third sin addresses a person's own importance, becoming more important than love, than our Creator. This happens when a person believes only in his mind, his abilities, and control of the world. This person doesn't accept the process of life or God's will. Instead, he lives by his inner confidence and selfish desires. This is referred to as diabolism in the Bible. In order to choose the right path, one of development, we must understand that God or love or universe is the source of life and that we are part of the Supreme. We are one. Life first appeared as a universal world soul, and then particles emerged from this soul. Our souls, as particles of the world soul, cannot exist and develop without the highest energy received from our Creator. As long as a person's soul maintains unity with the Creator, a person lives and develops. My spiritual teacher refers to this connection to the divine as being plugged in. She says, if you are plugged in to the outlet of love, you're constantly receiving the energy of life needed for health, happiness, wealth, and everything else. What does it mean to be plugged in? It means to work on ourselves, to read books on spirituality, listen to podcasts on the topic, maybe attend seminars, or pray. In short, to live with love every moment of every day, to remind ourselves to love. I know for me, if I go a week or more without something reminding me to love, I start to forget. I notice myself getting upset, blaming others, feeling hurt. But then I stop myself in my tracks and I say, wake up, Yulia. Love. I also like to use the metaphor of the ocean to describe the oneness. The ocean is made of many, many droplets of water, right? And they all come together to form one grand body of water. Each droplet shares the same properties as those of the ocean itself. They are the ocean. The ocean is in each of those droplets. Same for us people. There is God, there's universe, there's love in each one of us, and we all form into one big existence, one universe. We're all interconnected and we share the same source. Understanding this oneness changes so much. I won't go into details just yet, but think about it. If we're all interconnected, then if I do harm to someone, that harm will come right back to me. This is, of course, what we call karma. More on that in another episode, though. Now that we've established that pride, in its many forms, is one of the incorrect feelings and attitudes of our ego, a filter of sorts that could be removed, we need to learn and practice recognizing the signs of it and substituting pride with love. Thankfully, in our day and age, we don't need to go to the mountains and meditate for days or walk on nails to overcome the ego. As my teacher explained in a recent seminar, our souls have evolved so much, we've existed on this earth for so many years, that we're actually living in a golden age where we don't need to turn to extremes for spiritual development. Loving with the soul is enough to progress spiritually and achieve a better life because of it. Worshipping love guarantees there will be neither contempt for life nor worship of it. So let's look at some examples of when pride can be substituted with love. First, I'd like to explain that every person gets certain situations or lessons in this life based on either previous lives, the lives of the parents or grandparents of the person, or the behavior of the person in this life, or a combination of these. So let's take, for instance, the common character trait, jealousy. If you are a jealous person, you will undoubtedly attract people and situations that will make you jealous, testing you every time until in one of these lives you pass this lesson and won't need to be tested on it again. So after doing some past life regressions, I found out that I used to be a jealous person in my past lives, and I used to be a jealous person in this life before I started on this spiritual journey. So I will admit I still sometimes feel jealousy, but I recognize it immediately and I try to replace it with love straight away. Due to my jealous character, I attracted relationships in which men lied to me, cheated on me, and presented me with countless reasons to be jealous. It frightens me to recall these times because I was really unhappy and insecure and clueless about why this was happening to me. Now, of course, I know that I was learning. I was given many experiences in the subject of jealousy, but I was not passing those lessons. My ego was getting hurt, and that made me extremely sad. But now I understand that my soul was actually evolving. It was acquiring valuable experiences in order to evolve. So today I look at things differently. Let's say I see my husband, I don't know, chatting away with a beautiful woman. My first reaction may still be, okay, I don't like that. But hey, I know this is a test, so I choose to see love in this situation, this experience that is given to me by our Creator. Boom. My aggression, my feelings of insecurity, all that goes away, and love, as well as trust in the process of life, remains. Now, I've aced another test, and this situation might never come up again for me. My teacher once gave me an interesting metaphor for how I should view my husband, what he should mean to me. She compared him, and this goes for any person, to the sun. She said, we can't be jealous of the sun shining for everyone. So let your husband smile and flirt if needed with whomever he wishes. Let him be, and don't try to own him and shut him off from the rest of the world and have him all to yourself. Love and let go. See the divine love in your husband. Love his soul, not just his body or his intelligence or success. Also, see the child in him. And more on this actually in another episode too. We certainly can teach and guide our other half or our family members, whoever. We can even scold them, but we must do this from a place of love and not anger or jealousy. We are with the person we're with for a reason. There are no coincidences. Our husband, our father, our mother, any family members or people that surround you for a reason. And we attract these people into our lives to learn from them and help them learn too. I remember a couple of years ago when I was learning more about this topic of jealousy, I was watching a series about Pablo Picasso. He was an artistic genius, and women loved that in him. He had several relationships at one time, and each woman knew about the other. Yet neither one left him. At first, I couldn't understand how this could be. I couldn't even fathom the idea of sharing a husband or a partner. But in that series, they loved him for what he was. Loving someone unconditionally means to love the person's soul, to forget the bad, and of course to forgive. But interestingly enough, my teacher said that forgiveness is not actually the right way to deal with emotional pain, because forgiveness puts us in a superior position, above the person or people we're forgiving. It makes us a judge of sorts, granting us the right to forgive or convict, consequently creating feelings of resentment. Since we're not God, it's not in our right to judge others. We can either forget the pain caused to our ego by our significant other, for example, or we can choose to move on to a different relationship. But it's very possible that the same lesson will be presented in the next relationship if we fail to react to the pain with love the first time. Remember, love comes in pluses and minuses. And minuses, although painful to our ego, help our soul evolve. Another example of the ego at play is when we feel fear. It appears when our instincts take precedence over love. When, for example, I fly in an airplane and strong turbulence begins, I'm not gonna lie, I feel a bit scared, which is natural because my ego doesn't want to die with my body at that moment. So when this happens, I catch myself on the negative thought and I start to say my mantras or prayers that remind me no matter what happens, it's for the best. If it's my time to go, then so be it. You can repeat, for example, the phrase, I accept the divine will, and watch your worries disappear. Or you can choose a mantra or a prayer that works for you, but use it in moments of distress or moments of fear. The first time that my teacher told me I shouldn't be afraid of death, I didn't know how to react. How can I ever view death as anything but sad, painful, or scary? With time, I have become more comfortable with the idea, accepting the inevitable, but I also realized that I'm way too attached to life, which again is a sign of the ego trying to latch on to earthly pleasures, food and sex and power. These are all temporary, right? And they cannot be worshipped. For example, I used to worry a lot when my husband would travel for work and not call for a while. I would ask him, please call me when you land or when you get to your hotel. And then when he didn't, my immediate thoughts were, oh my goodness, he has had an accident, or maybe he's with another woman, or some other kind of nonsense. Negative thoughts, they are intrinsically linked to lack of love. They're linked to mistrust of the process of life. No wonder I had anxiety up the wazoo. Now, after working on myself for a few years, I rarely have negative thoughts like that. And if I do, I again turn to my prayers. And that stops the worrying. Even my husband is big on telling me, if you can't control something, it's no use worrying about it. If you're not there to do anything about it, stop thinking, stop overanalyzing. In other words, leave it to God, leave it to the Creator, to the universe, whatever you believe in, leave it to that to resolve. I know it's not easy to react out of love in a difficult situation, but with practice it becomes possible. If your ego gets hurt, if you let it control you, resentment is usually the result. And resentment does horrific things to our bodies, our lives, and often the lives of our children and even our grandchildren. I used to ask the question, well, why are some people that are clearly resenting others or have done terrible things in this life, why do they seem to be in good health or living their lives without a worry? It turns out that for some, the karma or the punishment is delayed until possibly the next life, because some people actually have a good reserve of energy from previous lives. But for others, the punishment may be transferred to their descendants, to their kids, grandchildren. So karma works in various ways, but it does catch up one way or another. So no matter what, we need to just try every day to find love all around us and focus on the positive and strive towards evolution of the soul, enlightenment. To sum up, the only way to overcome the ego, and this work never stops, is to continually remind ourselves that we are souls first and that we must strive to evolve spiritually and recognize that God is one. We are one. Monotheism implies that everything is divine. which in turn means that everything is good and according to plan. Good and evil exist only on the outside, but from a higher, divine point of view, everything is natural and has a higher plan. Only a person who has understood this, realized this, that his unity with the Creator is real, that person can put God or love or universe in first place. In the words of the author Neil Donald Walsh, the soul is the highest form of love. It is after the feeling, not the knowledge. It already has the knowledge. Perfect love is the highest feeling. It is the unity with all that is. Just as white is the total sum of all colors, so love is the total sum of all feelings. Hate, anger, lust, joy, jealousy, honor. Perfect love is to experience every human feeling. Let's just remember to experience these feelings from a place of love. And to add to that, I also love how Ram Dass explains it. He was an American spiritual leader, as well as a psychologist and writer. He says that you and I are in training to be free. We're in training to be present, so spacious, so embracing. We're in training to not look away, deny, or close our hearts when we can't bear something. The statement, "I can't bear it," is what burns you out in social action. When you're in the presence of suffering and contracting, it's the contraction that starves you to death. When you close your heart down to protect yourself from suffering, you also close yourself off from being fed by that same life situation. If you can stay open to both the suffering and the joys of life, all of it, then it's like a living spirit. Just as I said before, both the good and the bad in our lives is love. Some is yummy and some taste like medicine because it is medicine for our soul. We need to learn to love the medicine, accept it, and embrace it. I think I've given you enough today to digest and reflect on. So I will leave you with a quote from a 13th century poet, Rumi. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Thank you for listening, and until next time.